My name is Carrie Beeman, and I am an NF mom.
My name's Holly Beeman. I'm 15 years old, and I was diagnosed with NF1 when I was 2.
I said my daughter has all these spots, and that was the first time I heard a cafe au lait and heard that she might have neurofibromatosis.
Recently, I started getting pain in my plexiform tumor.
I would like NF research to be on the forefront. You know, our children are very important in this world.
I think I definitely hope more drugs or more medicine can come out that can help stop tumor growth. There's one FDA approved drug, but it's not always a good option for everyone.
She's doing a great job advocating for herself, and that makes me so proud as a mom.
I mean, I'm old enough now to understand what I'm going through and make decisions for myself, but when I was younger, I couldn't do that, so it was up to my mom to decide.
I mean, she is resilient. She's powerful. She's beautiful. I got so many adjectives, I don't even know. I always want to be there for you. I'm always going to be a mom, but I'm so proud of you, Holly.
All right, everybody, we're going to get started. If y'all want to take your seats, thanks to some people filing in. So let's kick this thing off. Forgive me, I'm going to be reading off notes occasionally. Hope you don't mind. So first off, hello, welcome back, and welcome to today's first Alexion sponsored session. My name is Tyler Gullbrand. I'm a director of patient marketing at Alexion, and I've had the distinct privilege of working on Alexion's NF team for 3.5 years. The title of today's talk is NF Moms Talk, What I Wish I Knew Then, okay? So when we first sat down as the Alexion team to ask ourselves, what do we want to do with this session? We had a lot of ideas of things that we could present on, but we kept thinking about a phrase that we've heard over the years from CTF and other leaders in the community, and that's nothing about us without us. So with that in mind, rather than do another sort of corporate presentation for you, we thought, what better value could we bring than bringing 3 NF moms on stage, people like yourselves, to basically have a kind of fireside chat and share some of their hard-fought nuggets of wisdom that they've earned over the years. So we've got a lot of first-time attendees here today. We thought, what better way to bring some value today, rather than doing something corporate, let's bring you on stage so you can hear from folks like yourselves. With that, I'm going to hopefully stop talking so much pretty soon, but bear with me. I just got to do a couple of introductory notes before we get started. This event is unbranded, and what that means in our world is we're not going to be talking about medications or treatments or clinical trials or anything like that. We're going to be talking about lots of other topics that are very interesting, but if you have questions about treatments, things like that, there are folks outside in the booth area. You can talk to our patient education managers out there if you have questions related to that. If you hear me at any point, if something comes up related to medication or treatment, I might interrupt gently just to correct course and get us back off that topic, but hopefully we'll be just fine there. One last thing to note, 2 things really. Everyone's experience is their own. Nothing in this presentation should be taken as medical advice, and of course always talk to your doctor, to your care team before making any changes. And then a final slightly tongue-in-cheek disclaimer. You've probably figured out by now that I'm not a mom. This is true. Disclaimer, I'm not a mom, in case that wasn't sort of apparent. I hope you can give me a pass on that. I am the one non-mom on stage, but like I said, I'm going to do very little talking from here on out, so I hope you'll give me a pass. Really, the stars of the show are here with me on stage. So with that, I have the privilege now of introducing our 3 panelists. We have Lara, Renie, and Natosha, and they'll introduce themselves a little bit further in a sec, but I just want to say to the 3 of you, thank you for raising your hand to be a part of this. It really means a lot for you to stand up here and share your wisdom. So if you wouldn't mind, and Natosha, maybe you can start just to do a quick intro, tell us who you are, what your connection is to the community.
Okay, because I realized in my bio, that's online, it's really bland. so when I got it, it was really, I was running around. I had, my daughter graduated yesterday, so I was running around trying to, thank you. I was like trying to find new schools. So when I seen it, I was like, just parent of an NF mom. And I didn't know that that's what you guys were really gonna put. So here I am. So my name is Natosha Fraser. I'm actually a parent of a 10-year-old named Summer. She has NF. First, I just really want to say that being up on this stage was not on my bingo card because I attended the NF Summit for the first time last year in San Antonio. So for someone to tell me that, oh, hey, you're going to be doing a panel and I don't even like to talk to people would be like, I would have been like, yeah, you're kidding. But anyway, I have a daughter. Her name is Summer. She's 10 years old. She actually was unofficially diagnosed with NF at 3 hours old, which is unprecedented. It's just that we had just the pediatrician on duty that day. She just was like, she saw what I thought was a birthmark on her wrist. And she was like, listen, Mom, this can be nothing, but she was like, it may mean if you see 5 or more of these at a certain size, it may mean she may have NF. And she just literally planted that seed in my head. Fast forward, 2 years later, I saw she was getting more cafe spots, and I took her to the geneticist, and she ended up having NF. She got it through a spontaneous mutation. I do not have NF, nor do her father have NF. And really my connection with the community is because when she first got diagnosed, which was 10 years ago, there was really nothing. There was nothing. When I say nothing, there was nothing. Basically, the person just gave me a brochure and was like, yeah, we're just gonna wait, watch, and see. That's all we have. And they sent me away with that, and I didn't know anything about the disease. And then at that point, I was just really depressed. And I was like, and I threw it to the side, and then one day I just picked up a Children's Tumor Foundation brochure. And then I read it, just basically loved the organization, and I just came like an accidental activist for NF and my daughter. So that's just basically what I've been doing.
That's awesome.
In my day job, I'm a bank manager.
Thank you. Renie?
Well, I'm watching and I see a lot of, and first of all, Tyler, mom is a verb. It's momming. So, parenting, mom can take a lot of different things. I'm looking and observing maybe non-female, but that's okay. Like parenting, momming can take a lot of things. So just want to acknowledge parenting takes a lot of different roles. But I see a lot of heads nodding from what Tasha was talking about. And I just remember being in her place. My first NF Summit was 2014. I think it was Nashville. I was a lot youthful, younger than everything. But I have 2 children with NF1 and my husband. Our diagnosis was a little different. The elevator speeches, my son Philip was diagnosed when he was 6. And then about a year and a half later, through genetic testing, we found out my daughter, who was 4 at the time, and my husband, who was 36 at the time, had NF1. So the presentation, as all of you probably know, can be very, very different. It's not always predictive. It's never predictive, honestly, but that's how I came to know. And similar to Tasha, we were just shell-shocked. I'm a type A. If you know Enneagram, I'm a 1. If you just give me your life, it's going to be easier and you'll be happier if I can run it for you. Yes. That's out the door with this, right? You are out of control. So I really was spinning out of control too as a mother and trying to figure out what I could do. And that's how I found Children's Tumor Foundation. And coming to that first summit, I'm not gonna cry. Lara is one of the moms, and I see some other moms in the room as well that I met, and they just enveloped me. So if it doesn't come up, don't be a stranger at this conference. We are here for you. We've all been in your shoes if you're new to this, and this is the most wonderful sorority you never wanted to join. I'll leave it at that.
Love it. Thank you. Lara?
So I'm Lara Mukabenov. I'm from Pennsylvania and New Jersey. I was born in New Jersey, but we live in Pennsylvania now. I have 2 children. My youngest, Altana, is the one with the NF. She's a spontaneous mutation as well. And that was a shock. And back then, 2008 was the first time I worked with CTF. So 2005, when she was born, she was diagnosed at 1 month, similar to Tasha, right? We read in What to Expect When You're Expecting. It was like the second book. I was just like, that mom, right? I read it cover to cover. And it said, like a little blurb, and it said, if you have more than 6 cafe au lait birthmarks, it may be a sign of a neurological disorder, but it didn't say what kind. There was nothing else there, right? So I asked our pediatricians at 1 month, and she said, oh yeah, she has neurofibromatosis, and that was it. No explanation, and I went home and I Googled. That was a big mistake. As everybody knows, it was frightening. And because there wasn't a whole lot of information, there wasn't that resource now that a lot of your families have through CTF and all these other organizations we heard of earlier today. So when she was 2.5, she found her first plexiform, and that's when we started treatment. We went to CHOP because we're close to Philadelphia, and they were fantastic. And I met some families in clinic. I met Karen, and she was the first person. So she's like, let's start a walk. So with a few of our NF moms in Philadelphia, started a walk because that's the way we found we had a little bit control over this diagnosis. To be able to fundraise and speak to it is the only way we gain back a little bit of that control because, yeah, type A, a little bit. I get that, Mom. And and our journey's taken us all the way through today.
It's really cool. Thank you. Look, the title of the event is what I wish I knew back then. So we're going to keep coming back to that idea as we keep talking through this. So you've all shared a little bit about back then. I did find out from Kate today, apparently at this week's summit, about 40% of attendees are first-time attendees. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, right? And it's about 130 people. 130 plus people are here for the first time. And so I want to circle back to that idea of tell us about back then, your first summit, or last year, right? What was your first summit like? And maybe for the folks who are maybe in the audience asking, how do I do this, right? How do I get the most out of this summit? Can you maybe talk to them about your experiences, tell them some wisdom you learned along the way? Yeah, feel free.
It's fresher for you.
Yeah.
It's fresher for me.
Yeah.
So my first summit, I didn't really know what to expect. So I really didn't expect anything. So it was just really just seeking information. It was like, I really just don't know a lot about this condition. So let me just go. And in all honesty, I also wanted to just really be around people that knew what I was going through. Because for whatever reason, when you tell people what you're going through, people invalidate that. Like my daughter has what people call the invisible version of NF, because she don't have any other pronounced thing, but she has all of the cognitive issues. Like, she has ADHD, she has dyslexia, she's what you call a slow learner. And, she has some sensory processing disorders, but she's not autistic. So it's like we just fit into like this weird bucket because it's something that affects everybody differently. So from the outside to a regular person, she's normal because she doesn't have any of the things that Google tell you that NF should be. But, she's not normal to me. So I just really wanted to be around other people who kind of understood what I was going through. And I actually found that. And I'm actually glad that this panel came about, because one of the things in the session was there just needs to be a place for moms to kind of let go. There just needs to be a place for moms or families just to like really just take a breather and a sigh, because it just seems like with NF, you keep going and go. It's like the Energizer Bunny. You keep going and going and going. And although we may run out of steam, NF just is never going to run out of steam. So for me, not only was I seeking information, which I did find, I actually did find people that I do still keep in contact. The staff of CTF is wonderful.
Yeah.
I have to say, like, they are wonderful from any organization that I've ever met. I joined CTF Engage, which is the patient advocate. Didn't think I was going to do that. But, I just found myself just really wanting to be involved more because of CTF. And because when I started to meet people, it's like, hey, I'm not by myself. I'm not alone. Like, and these people, they just don't invalidate what I'm going. So if I say, hey, I need a break, or hey, my daughter is on 10,000 today, and I don't have someone to say, oh no, but she's like, she looks fine to me or whatever. And oh no, I no, because when you see her, she's behaving well. She's not swinging off the chandelier. But if I'm telling you she's swinging off the chandelier and I need a break, I just appreciate people that say, okay, I understand what you're saying, and you just really don't get that with the outside world, but you do get that here.
Tasha, somebody said to me, it's understanding without explanation. And that's what it is. It's like, you don't have to get into the whole like background of what NF is, and you don't have to, explain all these different, and then kind of get that, people don't know what to say or they feel uncomfortable. And it's like, here you can express that and then move on to the next thing and get that kind of release. Yeah.
Love that. Understanding without explanation. It's really nice. Did you want to say anything?
I was going to say, you talked about connecting with peers and things. I call it the lobby effect. Kudos to Children's Tumor Foundation for always picking a venue where there's a lot of space to gather in evenings and things like that. If you enjoy a cocktail, you just want a Coca-Cola, as we say in Alabama, that's fine. Just come pop a squat on that sofa if you see us sitting there, and that's where we've really made those connections. Because sometimes, you've talked about NF all day, and you just need to decompress or whatever, and we do that. So, hearing, oh, we're moving, tell me about it, those kinds of things. How's education going in this regard? Or, girl, you're looking kind of snatched. How are you doing this year? Whatever it is, it's just kind of fun. And you just have those connections. So again, for those 130 or so people that are new, come to the lobby, hang out with us. We're not a clique or whatever, because we've all been there. And it's just, it's my joy to connect with new people. And I know everybody up here feels the same.
Definitely.
For sure. I'd love to circle back. You mentioned the Energizer Bunny, and that sounds like a metaphor that we all can get on board with. I'm curious, though. There's the phrase "one cannot pour from an empty cup," right?
Oh, yes.
How do you manage that? How do you refill your cup while running like that Energizer Bunny?
Okay, go.
So,
do you? Yeah.
I mentioned 2014 was our first summit. We'd received the diagnosis of my daughter and my husband the week before. And so I was just in a very dark place. You were talking about just depressed and just that feeling of helplessness. And I don't even remember the drive from Birmingham to Nashville that year. I didn't know what to expect. I just knew I had nothing there. And I didn't know, my relationship with my husband, he was feeling this tremendous sense of guilt for something he had no control over. I was the only one unaffected in my family, and I needed to figure out how to reconcile, how do I communicate and support everybody and everything like that. I was an empty cup. I was very much an empty cup. And so, connecting with people were here, but then you got to find your community. We're very fortunate, in the South, we're an open book, whatever. And so whether that's a place of worship or a school or a community or your next door neighbor or the Meemaw who lives across the street who is always willing to kind of sit with you or whatever, find your people. And if you don't have your people, we're going to be your people here. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's really kind of where I was able to fill my cup and find that. I had people to hold me accountable to be like, you need to fill yourself back up. And this is a big refueling once a year for me too. So you're no good to your family if you're poured out. So find your people and find people to hold you accountable to say, you look kind of rough, you act like rough.
Yeah.
How's everything going? And have that person or that, community that can be honest with you.
You ever feel guilty prioritizing that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? How do you deal with that?
Well, for me, sort of like, Renie still being like depressed. So for me, I think it just all came to a head in my boss's office. So the community is weird where you might find a community at, but mine was really at work. I was really close to my coworkers. And one day, like my daughter, believe it or not, if you meet her, you would not know that she just started talking 5 years ago. Like not even 5, maybe 3 years ago. Because those were some of the issues that she had. And just like one day I'm trying to find, like I couldn't communicate with her, she couldn't communicate. I thought about taking a sign language class so I could understand what she was saying. And one day I just went into my boss's office and I started crying. Because I just did not know what to do. I did not know like where to go. And I think this is a man thing. They try to they try to like pat you on the back and understand your tears, but men are solution people. And so it was like, okay, yeah, I understand you're crying, we all cool with that, but let's find a solution, right? And so he did, right? So, you know, he knew a few people in the special education area, whatever situation, and he introduced me to one of his clients who then started to help me try to figure out where to go from there. And this is how I found, you know, the school that my daughter goes to now. So, you know, it's really, you just have to stop. Sometimes you just have to stop and just take an assessment of what's going on around you. And really don't feel guilty. It is okay to leave your kids and go on vacation. I left my daughter like 2 weeks ago and went to the movies. Like, I wanted to see a movie. Nobody wanted to see it with me. I went by myself. And I'm actually glad I did go by myself, because after that, I stopped at a bar, which was right outside.
There you go. There you go.
And I'm not a drinker, but I was like, hey, this is like when, I don't know.
Later.
It was like a pop-up bar, because I live in New York City, so we have like a lot of these drinks. So I was like, wow, and I actually had a drink. I don't drink. But if it tastes like Kool-Aid, I will drink it. Which is the ones that sneak up on you. Matter of fact, that's when the Knicks were in the playoffs. After 18 years of not being in the playoffs. So I stopped and I didn't even rush back home. I actually have an older daughter that's 27, and she had my little one out, and she's calling me like, you know, when I'm gonna be home. I ignored the phone. I just turned it off. It's like, no, this is my time. I'm gonna have it. Don't feel guilty about that. Go on your girl trip. Go out for dinner.
That's it.
Go, you know, just do it, because if you're burnt out, then you're no good to your child, or you're no good to anyone else. So, you know, I'm just do everything that you're meant to do in life, still do it, but just do it around NF. That's it. That's what I learned to do.
I hear you. I'm a single mom. And when my daughter was diagnosed, my ex-husband was largely out of the picture already. And so I did everything on my own. And it took a lot, right? And I felt like I had to, and I had to be there for both of my children, because my son too. I mean, I couldn't, you know, prioritize, so it was that. And I worked full time, and I went back to massage school at night because I was afraid during her treatment I wouldn't be able to work 9 to 5, and how else am I gonna support them? And there was a lot of guilt, right? And then I realized, like, I'm doing them no favors. Like, I come home and I'm like dead asleep, and I don't have that time to spend with them, right? So I have to find outlets for myself. And little by little, it was like, okay, we'll do a dinner. We'll go out to a movie. We'll, you know, and I didn't have to feel guilty. I'm lucky that I had my mom come live with us and also support us. But it was great. Now, I don't know if y'all know Teresa, if she's in the room. We decided 3 years ago, we're going to take a week, and we're going on a cruise. And we go with no kids, no husbands, no parents, no work, no nothing. And we're just Lara and Teresa. And that's how we refill our cup, like, every year. We just do that. And then we can go back and attack everything with that kind of strength, you know, and reconnecting with who we are.
Lara's going to have the massage table out.
Yeah.
Sign up sheets on Google.
Okay.
So,
No problem.
were you going to say something?
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, you know, we're talking a lot about families, right? And we mentioned a couple times siblings. You know, there's also this dynamic of kids. Kids don't stay kids, right? They grow, they change, they get older. Any thoughts to share on some of those ideas? You know, how do you manage sibling relationships? How do you manage kids getting older?
Well, even without NF, I think my children are now 17 and going to be 20 in 2 weeks. I can't even. And they have bonded over ganging up on me now. Okay, so they eventually stop torching each other and fighting, and then they find that common ground as they kind of mature. So for those of you that are just like, you feel like you have oil and water if you have children, they come around. But just be careful, because they'll come around on you.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's both a joy and a sorrow to see them grow up, right? Like, I put a brick on them every night, but they just keep growing. They just keep growing. And so, in spite of NF, you know, finding those bright spots and really affirming and celebrating them. You know, my son, some of you know, is sort of a little bit of a cameo in the NF world a little bit, but he does not want to be like, he used to talk a lot when they're little. They talk. Well, now he's almost 20. He's like a bass in the choir and doesn't talk very much. But I had to send him a text. I said, Philip, I just want you to know how many people have asked about you and said that you are a shining example of what they hope for their family. And I'm just so proud of you. And thank you for having the courage, whether you realized or not when you were 6, 8, 10, et cetera, that you continue to be a light here. So thank you. I'm so proud of you, Mama. So affirm them where you can.
Absolutely. And my son is my daughter's biggest advocate sometimes. I mean, he was over there helping us with walk when he was like 6 years old, and he's like running around and he doesn't treat her any differently. Like, and we don't kind of treat her with kid gloves. And he certainly doesn't because, they're siblings, right? But it's made all the difference, right? It's not like, oh, she's so fragile. She's like porcelain and we have to put her in a box. And he, brings her back down to, that sibling level, right? Where they're just kids. And whether she has that diagnosis or not, she knows he'll always be in her corner. And that's invaluable. Like, he's such a good soul.
See, for me, I have 2 girls. So I have a 27-year-old and then I have the 10-year-old. And they fight. See, you didn't expect me to say that, but they fight all the time.
It's girls.
No, but seriously, my 27-year-old, she's like really great, but I do have to show her the same amount of attention that I do the 10-year-old. And prime example, me and the 10-year-old were going to Beyonce, and I didn't tell her. So when she was in New York, so I like bought tickets, and I was like, come on, let's just go. It was just spontaneous. And so my 27-year-old got wind of it. So it was like, oh, okay, so I have to buy her a ticket too. But my 27-year-old has a great job that takes her from here to Timbuktu, and she makes more money than me. But I had to buy her a ticket.
It's the thought that counts, Mom. It's the thought.
So it's like, so basically, there is like no different. There is times that she does step in and, she sort of parents Summer for me when I need that break. And like I said, but beyond them fighting, she's really good. She's a very good support system for me. She's been really good. So like when she went away to college, like I cried because it was she went away to college because I was like 41 when I had Summer, and she was already 18 and going to college. And it was like, and for her, it was like, yes, I'm not around this little kid when she's crying. But, no, she's like really great. But, they do have their differences. I do have to pay attention to both of them. It do seems like I have to buy them the same thing, whether it's ice cream or Beyonce tickets. She actually was upset that she is not here. It's just me, Summer, and her dad this time. So she was upset. I'm like, I thought you couldn't get off work. She's like, but I would have took off anyway. So she feels like she needs to go everywhere that Summer goes. So, and I have to keep that in mind, that even though she's 27 and she's an adult, she's still like our kids are our babies, right? And so I do have to be mindful so I'm always mindful to invite her, even if it's the most silliest thing that I'm doing with Summer. It could be the most kiddish thing, but surprisingly, she always wants to come. So, yeah.
That's really sweet.
Can I say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Because it was a conversation with a mom I had just before we came up here related to siblings and things. And so, I mentioned my daughter also has an F, but she's largely unaffected, invisible, what have you. And, a lot of attention was on Philip earlier because he had a lot of medical complications. And we tried very, very, even though working full time, mom, everything else, how do you find a little time to do that? But we really tried hard to create some special experiences just for Helen outside of that. But I'm going to be honest with you, to this day, she says, I know you did it, but it still felt different. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Like you didn't do anything wrong. And I carry a lot of guilt with that. There's only so much time in a day. Like you said, do you feel guilty? And you feel like a Indian goddess with 15,000 hands going in a million different directions that are spinning plates that you're constantly keeping from dropping. But it's okay. And so the conversation with my mom was like, did I do that right? And just being honest and having those. And so Helen being 17, we talk about that. Helen, you talk about this, like, let's talk about that because mom doesn't remember I'm old. What did that feel like? And even that's a little bit of a unique experience to kind of rebuild things that in her little mind may have felt bigger, and that's real for her and those experiences. But now that she's maturing, kind of figuring out what that looks like in terms of resiliency and our relationship. So don't be afraid to have those hard conversations, because it does build authentic conversations later in ways that you just never know, that I'm having now with her.
And I'm just going to piggyback off that for 1 second. So I had the liberty of being raised by my great-grandparents. So one thing my grandmother always said, actually she had to tell her adult daughter about this. No kid, even though your children have the same mom and dad, no matter what, no kid get the same parent.
No.
And you have to remember that. No kid gets the same parent. It doesn't matter that you live in the same household. Doesn't matter that you have the same parents. None. And basically what I mean by that is my little brothers, we feel like they had the greatest upbringing.
Your parents were tired.
Compared to, my mom was hard on us. And by the time she got to my little brother, she was like, I'm just tired.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, she did. Just
no curfew.
She did. Yeah, right. It was no curfew. So no parent no child gets the same parent. It doesn't mean that they love you a lot less, or another child a lot more, or you a lot less. It does not mean that. It's just that they're in different times.
Yep.
Whenever you came along.
Exactly.
It's really insightful. Thank you. Yeah. We only have about a little less than 10 minutes left. I was going to try to do a couple of questions in that time. We've heard, time and again through everything that you've shared. I guess you would say there's no connection quite like that between a mother and their child, or a parent and their child. But time and again, as you talk through your stories, you hear about these other people, right? Whether that's siblings or other family members or folks in the community, you hear about a village, right? So I think there's that special connection that can never be replicated, right, between parent and child. But what's clear to me, at least in listening to you, is that it's never just that connection, or it shouldn't be. Do you want to say anything about that before we get to our last question, about what it means to have a village, and maybe what it was like if maybe you didn't at the start?
Ooh, how vulnerable do we want to be?
I know.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll go there.
Okay. Yeah.
From marriage was hard after this, and figuring that out. And, there were things I couldn't say to my husband that I found in this community in terms of that. And I know just marriage is hard, and when you're dealing with a rare disease, there's just a lot of time taking away from that. I was very committed to my marriage, but we almost didn't make it in 2011, 2012, 2013. After that, we were just zombies, really, and not having the intentional time for each other, and it just happened. And so I could have those vulnerable conversations here with folks, and in those cases where I could kind of, glean from them experiences and understand, what sword, what hill am I going to die on here versus him, and things like that, and whether or not I had time or it was worth it. I'm happy to say we are still married, and stronger for it and deeper for it. That may not be the case for everybody, and that's okay too. But I would say that village was really important to me outside of parenting altogether, in terms of just my relationships and my marriage. I will say also, as a working person, I had some people say, you are a horrible, miserable person to work with right now. Okay? And it wasn't my boss, thank God. But it was somebody else who was just like, we got to figure this out. And I worked with college students, so relationships are kind of important, So that was a really important thing too, to just kind of have somebody where they knew I wasn't going to chew them out, but I trusted them to have that relationship with me to figure out, dial it back. What can we do? To your boss, let's figure out a solution, because you're valued and worthy here, and you don't even know that you're burning down the village around you sometimes. And so you have to have that person.
And no village looks the same, right? And I pull on different people for different things. It's wonderful to have my mom there now with us. Now I'm her caregiver. But during that time when the kids were growing up, it was great to have her, but she could do certain things, right? So she could help me with childcare and, running around, but she couldn't take her to the doctor's appointments. She couldn't hear that, right? And I had people at work that their children were going through similar things. And so I leaned on them for that kind of advice. And obviously our NF community here, coming to Summit since 2009, we've met so many different people whose kids are affected in so many different ways that there's always somebody or 10 people to pull on that are like, they're going through the optic glioma thing. They're going through that scare from this MPNST. They're going through whatever it is, right? So the village looks different for everybody, but there's always that resource. I mean, if you're finding it in your faith and, wherever, my book club, whatever. Yeah.
It's awesome.
So I would just say, I love the movie Field of Dreams. So I would just say, build it and they will come. Yeah. Sometimes you have to just break down your walls. So for me, my daughter's going to be 11. I actually didn't open up to anyone about her diagnosis until last year after my first summit. This is something that I kept to myself because it's mine. I don't really feel like hearing people, whatever people go through or whatever people tell you. So basically, yes, everybody's village looks different. Mine actually is mostly male because I have a lot of brothers. I was very close with my boss. And, my daughter's father, we're not together, but he's great. He's here with her or whatever. We co-parent very well. And yeah, so I would just say, just knock down your walls, open it up, let people in, and people actually will come. And you will know who to take in your village, and you will know who not to take in your village. And that's what I would just say about that.
That's really nice. Thank you. All right, we've got, it looks like they gave us more time. Wow.
Wow.
The clock went up. Oh, that's fun. Okay. Well, let's do one extra question then. Great. I love it. All right, so let's talk about school. Right? And Tasha, I know you got a lot to share on this, and we're going to start with you. What about school, right? What does advocating for your child look like over the years?
So, school. So as I mentioned, my daughter just graduated yesterday from her school that she's in. And in the midst of that, looking for schools for when she started to now, it's just really tough because at first when I put her in the school that she graduated from, I didn't really know what I was looking for. I didn't really grasp what she really needed, right? So because I just kept saying, she just have this learning disability that's driven by this condition, this medical condition. What does that really mean to someone who, even in the special education world, because special education, I'm finding is very broad, right? So when I put her in this school, which is a great school, which I said she didn't speak when she went there. They got her speaking. She's a slow learner, right? So, but what I understood or what I realized in the end, that school actually wasn't the right school for, even though we got through it. And I give credit to the school for getting her through her most difficult moments. But then I realized the school were more for kids with behavior problems. And my daughter did not have a behavior problem. She had a learning disability. And so because the school focused on behavior problems, it kind of took away from them focusing on her learning disability. So then I had to bring in a tutor. So I brought in a tutor to supplement school. So that was a little bit something that I learned. And this time, we're looking for a school. This time, she said that she wanted to be in a small setting because the school that she's in only have 30 kids. And so I'm looking at schools that have 200 kids, like the Winston Pratt or Churchill School or something like that. And what I realize is sometimes as parents, when we're looking for education, we do what's best for us. We don't do what's best for the kids. What I mean by that, it's close to my job. It's close to home. Yeah. It's that. So when she said, but Mommy, I don't want to go to a school that's a big school, I said, okay. And I reassessed and I just started looking at small schools, pretty much like the one that she was in, because obviously that's what she could handle. But what I also learned is you have to advocate beyond the IEP, beyond the neuropsych sometimes. So that actually was hard too, because in looking at schools, it was we don't go by the neuropsych, or we don't go by the IEP, and we don't, but it's but she needs these things. This is what she needs. This is what she's saying. So you really, really have to advocate for your child in those areas. So when I looked at the IEP and honestly, when she first got it, I didn't read it. I probably didn't really thoroughly read her neuropsych, so I just gave it to the teachers and that was that. But now I took the time and I actually read it and really read what she needs. And so I actually went line by line of what the neuropsych said, and I implemented those things, and it made a world of difference, right? So I implemented an Orion Gilliam tutor. I implemented outside speech, outside physical therapy, outside occupational therapy. I implemented taking her to the museum because, she's one of those learners that learn by seeing. And I wanted the school to do the same thing. So it was, she needs to go to school for 12 months. She needs to have a one-on-one. So I found a school actually that did that. They each child had their own teacher. But it was hard because I went through, by the time I got to that school, I actually was in tears. It was like, wow, I'm so exhausted. And then it was, she needs to go to school for 12 months. Okay, so that school provided. But I actually don't love the school either, but it checked all the boxes in her neuropsych. And so that was important. So it was like, oh, well, you can't have everything. So I decided to take 70% of what I can get, and I will teach her the rest.
Great.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the connection real quick. And I don't want to repeat what you said, Tasha, because it's amazing. And everybody's experience is unique. But if you don't have a Dropbox or a Google file, start it. If you don't, our insurance covered the neuropsych evaluation when Philip was in first grade, and then again in fifth grade, kind of going into middle school. It was, when I say covered, I mean, here's your deductible all at once, but it was cheaper than if we paid out of pocket. Not everybody has that ability, okay? Yep. And so you talk about your village and connectivity because you know people like, hey, my son is going into middle school and he's really struggling with X. I just send my formal neuropsych evaluation to them because our neuropsychological evaluation, literally, our school just said, cut, paste, that paragraph. That's what we'll do for you. They wrote it for us in ways that I didn't really have to do, and we're very fortunate in that. And if it worked for us, it may not work for you, but sharing those resources in a way that can really be beneficial is really important. So again, find your people. You never know when you're going to need them. If it's dyslexia, if it's ADHD, if it's social, or whatever the circumstance is, somebody's been there. Somebody's been there before you, and be willing to share those resources.
No, absolutely. I wish I would have gotten more involved with it when she was younger, for sure. We did, when she was in third grade, she had, from her first treatment, and then she got an OHI designation, other health impairment, much broader, right? So as she progressed, things came up, things fell off, but there was that ability to kind of mold her IEP to what she needed, right? You can't just let them say, oh, well, now she needs only emotional support. Now she needs only educational support. Definitely follow through. Like you said, you have to read through all of those IEPs. You go line by line with them. And it used to be a 20-minute meeting. It went to like 2 hours. And I was like, that's it. And this is what she needs. And you don't know.
And you don't, I hear the bell ringing too. You're staying in this room.
Yeah. And I agree with the designation. I had to do that with my daughter because it was like, she had a speech designation. That's it. And they were like, if she speaks, she'll learn. Okay, well, she started talking and she's still not learning. So we have to do something different here. And then one last thing I can employ, just become best friends with your educators, with the people at your school. Because even though, my daughter's school, I may have felt short in some areas, they were wonderful. I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that they weren't wonderful. They were absolutely wonderful. And they were a new school, so they also were finding their footing of what was going to be their specialization. So it wasn't just the schools. I wanted to make sure to say that. But we were just like really, really good. Like just becomes best friends with your educator in the school. Like make them get tired of seeing you.
They're overworked and underpaid. I didn't mean to imply anything negative about
absolutely.
It. Yeah. But help me help you is kind of the spirit of that.
Yeah.
Right. And nobody knows your child better than you, right?
Yep. Yeah.
That's right. All right, with 5 minutes left, we're going to go to our last question here. But just to sort of recap, we've hit a bunch of different topics, right? We've talked about experiences at your first summit, how to sort of get the most out of this. We've talked about the role of a parent and caregiver. We talked about siblings and self-care and how to manage the feelings that might come with prioritizing self-care. For the last question, I want to kind of circle back to the title of the event, right? What I wish I knew then. And I was really excited. I heard at least once one of you actually just said, I wish I knew back then. So I want to ask you kind of a different kind of question. I want you to think back, like we said at the beginning, to sort of back then, you know, the earlier times. And I want you to imagine yourself from however many years ago is out in the crowd right now, one of these 130 plus first-time attendees here at Summit. What do you think your past self would deserve to hear from you now that you're up here on stage?
Okay. I anticipated this question and I made notes. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Can I read from my notes?
Yeah.
Okay. Because this took me a long time. It was very hard for me in my first summit. I spoke to nobody. I took in a lot of information. I went home and I cried. And I didn't make that connection, but I came back the next year. And, you know, I made 1 or 2 connections. And now we're social directors, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's fine.
We're the crazy
that's
directors.
what actually they made me. Yeah, I'm social committee now. So crazy. This is not me. I'm so introverted
so
normally.
you. It is
it's
so you.
so not me. But like,
You're next.
okay. So I wrote, I see you. I know how scared you are, how tired, how confused. I want you to know I won't always feel like this. You'll learn, you'll adopt, you will cry, you'll rage, you'll laugh. You'll find your people and they'll hold you up when you can't stand on your own. One day you'll even be the one holding somebody else up. This journey is hard, but it's not the one you have to take alone. Welcome to the family you didn't ask for, but you wish and you're grateful for it, right? You said that when we first walked in and I was like, exactly. You didn't want to be part of this family, but you are, and you're so grateful for that.
You're making me test my mascara.
I know. I got all choked up.
Thank you. All right, I heard Renie lean over and tell Tasha she's next.
I'm not
so-
following
Oh, wow. You know what? Wow, you really cannot follow that right there. And plus, she got like some onions in my eyes. They must be
Yeah. I think they're,
You know what? What I would just say, what I didn't know now, one important thing is to stay off Google. That's just one thing. The other thing is give yourself grace, because none of this is your fault. None of this is your fault. And I think everyone up here and some people in the room, the first thing you think when you hear an NF diagnosis is, what did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong. Listen, I had all the tests because I was an older person having a baby. I had all the genetic tests, and NF did not come up on the genetics test. So you did absolutely nothing wrong. So give yourself grace because you deserve it. And then after you give yourself that, take a deep breath. As many as deep breath that you need to take a deep breath, because you only going to do this one day at a time, one step at a time. Mm-hmm. That's the only way that this is going to get done. And listen, NF don't discriminate. It does not. It don't care if you're white, black, poor, Republican, Democrat. It does not care if you live in the house on the hill or if you just live in a studio apartment. NF does not discriminate. And that was like the biggest thing that I learned from last year with seeing, all of the variety of people that were here. It doesn't discriminate. So do not think that you're by yourself, or you do not think you're just in a special class because this happened to you because you're in like a social class. No, it loves all of us unintentionally. And and we just have to love it back. Yeah. And we have to love it so much till we find the cure.
And you have value. You may not be extroverted or introverted.
Yeah.
You may not see yourself as a fundraiser. You may not see yourself as an advocate. You have a value in this village. And please take that space, take that moment, but consider where you can find some control over this and move forward in power and in action.
And you're taking those first steps by being here.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.